It is 5 o'clock. This meeting of the WSCSU will come to order. This meeting is a hybrid meeting, which means some or all of the public body is meeting remotely and some are meeting physically in a previously noticed location where the public may attend to observe, listen, and participate contemporaneously. Please note that while we will strive to provide means for those attending remotely to participate in the public comment period, there may be technical difficulties or reasons that otherwise prevent or interrupt remote public participation. Therefore, it is important to note that open meeting law only ensures the public's right to participate and comment at a public meeting by attending at the designated physical location as posted in the notice and agenda. If a member of the public or the public body has technical difficulties accessing this meeting remotely, please alert us by email. In the event of a technical difficulty that cannot be resolved, we may continue the meeting if necessary to time and place certain. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting that are not unanimous will be done by roll call in accordance with law. Okay, I'm going to take off the glasses. Thanks, everybody. Welcome to this evening's meeting. Briefly, I would like to amend the agenda because I seem to have neglected to put new business on the agenda, which is a time that we discuss things that might have come up in the future. And at that time, I believe I will have a public statement to issue. Okay, I'm going to get back to my agenda. Moving on, we're going to enter the consent agenda. Any board member may request that any item be removed from the consent agenda. If it warrants further discussion, said item will be removed. Please make that request at this time. Otherwise, the consent agenda will be approved as a body. Anyone? Okay. I would entertain a motion for the approval of the consent agenda for October 9th, 2024.
So moved.
Thank you, Deborah. Do I have a second?
So we do something?
Yeah, we don't, you're right. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? The consent agenda is approved. Moving on to public comment on non-agenda items. I do not see any public in the waiting room. Is there anyone here who has anything to say? Yes.
Hello again. Good evening. My name is Martha Noyce and I am a resident taxpayer of Brattleboro. I am again here this evening to ask all of you, superintendent, principals, board members, to please begin to have the multi-leveled conversations about the school budget. And I just put out there, have any of you talked about compromise? Have any of you talked about consolidation? Have any of you talked about being creative? And it's time to start the conversations now. Thank you.
Thank you. And I still don't see anybody in the Zoom room. Okay, so we can continue and move on. I do not have anything for finance, and I do not see anybody from the business office here. So we can move on to the administrative reports. Mark, I believe you have an informal update to share with us first regarding benchmark data meetings.
Yes, happy to do that. We are currently engaged in our fall benchmark data meeting period right now in the school district. So what that looks like is essentially a central office team visits each of our schools, consisting of myself as superintendent, director of curriculum, curriculum coordinator, math coach, literacy coach, and then either special ed director or coordinator. So that group of educators visit each of our schools, and we essentially spend an entire day at that school meeting with the various teams at that school, looking at fall literacy and math benchmark data, social emotional data, relating to MLSS systems that are in place at our various schools. And we use that time to review interventions, supports that are needed for individual students, as well as groups of students, and then also a focus on enrichment opportunities for students. So it's very exciting. So far, I've been to Guilford, Green Street School, Oak Grove School, Academy School. Yesterday, BAMS had their day today, and I believe Putney actually had their data meeting today as well, and Vernon tomorrow. Moving forward at the high school, we will be looking at STAR data that Janet Slazinski will help initiate at the high school level at those teams. So it's been really exciting work, and it's nice to see kind of the system come together in supporting all of our individual teachers and teams of teachers at our various schools. So I just wanted to highlight that. I think it's worthy of highlighting, and it's just kind of a sneak peek into how the whole system supports all of our students.
Thank you very much, Mark. And I will point out that Mark's mentor, who is an advisor to the leadership team, told us it was very unusual for a superintendent to participate in benchmark data meetings, and she thought it was absolutely wonderful, and I agree with that assessment.
Thank you, Anne. Appreciate that.
Okay, moving on to new hires or resignations or retirements. I only have one. Do you have anything further, Mark?
I do not.
So I have a request for a new hire of Margot Frank for the position of part-time SLP. Do I hear a nomination? Yeah.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
Margot Frank.
Yep, Margaux.
You knew I did that wrong.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Welcome aboard, Margot.
Great.
And returning to our agenda, I believe we have a presentation on how MLSS is
Can I ask
helping.
a question before?
Absolutely.
Last time, Mark mentioned the need for a half-time admin assistant for the CO office. What's the status on that?
Mark?
Yes, good question. Tim, actually, there were 4 interviews held today, and there are 4 interviews scheduled for tomorrow. So the report I got from Ms. Mohart was that it was a very successful day today. Some really nice candidates came through the office. So we'll see what tomorrow brings, and then we'll be moving forward.
But isn't the administration bypassing policy C3, I think it is, on hiring? Shouldn't the board be given the job description and improve it before this goes further?
As reviewed at the last meeting, it's a clerical assistant position.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Not sure. Is it a new position? I mean, I know it's new for us. We've certainly had clerical positions at the central office many
Yeah,
times.
it's adding clerical support to central office. We will be short-staffed in the coming months, and we're trying to be proactive.
So it raises an interesting issue if you're adding a position. So you're increasing your workforce. Is that a new position?
Or is there currently an unfilled clerical position at central office?
Right, that's the question.
One that was created at some point in the past.
I mean, I can't help but recall when the board discussed the adding an admin assistant to the board. There's quite a bit of discussion and there's vocal opposition from it, from the finance director. So,
I would
Why?
say apples and oranges.
yeah, I know.
This is a,
But I just don't, apples and oranges, but there's still some relationship.
Yeah, I mean, it's a needed position. We were short-staffed for a number of months last year. Central office really took a hit in terms of the number of hours that people had to put in to ensure that the system didn't get slowed down. And we're anticipating that we will be shorthanded again this fall through the winter. And as we've kind of assessed the position and Mo's role, we feel like this is a very justified addition of clerical support.
Deborah.
So, choice of language I think is important. To say that you're short-staffed, to me, implies that someone is missing from your roster.
Yeah.
And that means that you had a fuller roster at one time and someone pulled away and you're looking to fill that position.
Not that specific position, but a
Right.
clerical position to just help the overall system kind of keep their head above water.
Right.
I think what we're trying to nail down here is, did some previous iteration of this board approve the creation of that position and it simply hasn't been filled up until now?
Yeah, I believe I raised this point at the last SU board meeting and felt very supported in moving forward with that process.
Okay, I would just bring to the superintendent's attention, I believe it's policy C3, new hires, and just be really familiar with that policy, because we're responsible to the public and to each other to ensure that all new positions are approved by the board. I'm not doubting that there's a need for it, but we just haven't seen the job description or heard a justification for it.
And specifically, it's the creation of a new position that requires board approval. So if this position or a similar position currently exists and isn't filled, then the board doesn't need to approve it. But if it didn't exist before, we are required to create it. That's what we need to know. We're not saying that we disapprove, it's just dotting our I's and crossing our T's situation.
Sure.
So if you could check into that for us, that would be great.
I will forward a job description for sure.
Thank you very much. Now, I believe we have a presentation prepared for us, so.
So Tate, I will turn things over to you and the team to lead that presentation.
Great.
He's working on sharing.
It'll get.
Oh, because it's not plugged in anymore.
It's D3.
Oh, D3.
Yeah, it's staffing and job description. Isn't that what you wanted? D3, yeah, I just
don't understand why that's giving us a problem here.
So just, while they're working on this, just for the notes, the policy in question is D3, staffing and job, it's not C, it's D3, staffing and job descriptions. I think that's the one in question. I'm not even opening it at this point, I'm just assuming that's the one.
It's a Zoom thing,
It's a Zoom thing.
so if you don't share it.
Yeah, I can put it up without sharing it, but,
You can share it.
okay.
Are you co-host?
Oh.
I'm host, and I've made it so that he can share it.
So this is what comes up when I hit the share screen. And then it won't let me go
It
past.
should be one of your, oh, weird. Isn't it weird?
That is different. I think it would just show my
My
test.
computer shut down. My computer, let's see.
No, I am allowing you to share.
How about, I was just trying to see if it was that.
So if your screen goes blank when you try to share?
It
It gives it like a
goes
triangle
into
with an
security,
exclamation.
goes into privacy and into grant access.
Let's see if I can try.
Here, let me just here.
Just give it permission.
Let me check it. That's special. Can I?
In the room.
That's like another.
Yeah. I mean,
You're up there,
That-
right?
that I can get.
She said she did.
So it's when you go to share the presentation.
Yeah, it gives me this.
It's a dramatic pause.
Share.
Yeah, sorry, everybody.
Okay, so it goes here, essentially. It won't let me check Zoom
Let me
for a
try.
while.
Oh, you can yell at us and we'll do
Thank
that.
you. All right.
So when you hit share screen, what pops up?
Apps for to record the contents of your screen while using other apps and it will let me.
There you go.
Oh,
Hey.
wait, now it's
You're
showing.
gonna have to tell me when to
All right,
shake, because I'm the one sharing it.
okay.
Yeah, your clicker won't work.
Okay, gotcha.
I'm the one sharing it.
Gotcha.
Perfect.
Perfect,
So-
all right, that works.
All right.
Okay,
and
thanks,
we'll have it-
All right,
we'll
thanks
have it up
for
here.
everything.
So she's sharing, so she
You
has
can share it so
And
that's easy
Karen
to see
Queen.
it, right?
Oh, it worked on mine.
It's gonna be a
Okay.
PDF tape versus slides.
Okay.
This time.
Yeah,
All right,
sorry,
well,
that's
then
how I
we're
was.
gonna-
It's kind of troubleshooting.
We're gonna miss a few things, the difference of it, but that's okay. All right, apologize for the delay. Here we go.
And now. Okay.
There we
got
go.
it. Yeah.
Okay, we're happy to be presenting to you tonight about our MLS system and specifically around how EST, coaching, and our special ed referrals and trends are happening within the SU this year. A substantial amount of work has gone into our multi-layered systems of support, and the next slide will show, oh, there we go. So goals for tonight, we'll review our district's alignment with our MLSS work and our ESTs. We'll learn how instructional coaching supports and supports teachers and students, and we'll review our expanded special ed case management model and evaluation referral trends. So our MLSS system, next slide please. This is a great graphic to demonstrate how all students get universal instruction. Some students need just a little more reinforcement, let's say a double dose of some curriculum or a little extra support. Another group of those students, even the smaller amount, needs to have it retaught or needs specific interventions or extension for a piece of the content they're learning. And in addition to that, there is a select group that needs something specialized that other students don't need. But they may be they're all receiving universal instruction and perhaps are receiving either of these other layers. In the past, we used a pyramid model and actually perpetuated siloing kids and saying, oh, you're at this level, so you're at this level for everything. Whereas what we know with our multi-layered systems of support is this is a dynamic system that has a lot of interaction between our content, our local assessment, our data to align, and then constantly reviewing our data to say, oh, this student no longer needs that short-term intervention, they're back in the mainstream, or this intervention didn't work as well as we hoped, and we need to look at either a more intensive or a different set of interventions to make the progress that we're hoping for. How that's done is through the use of our extensive instructional resources. We added a lot of links within this slide deck to allow you to have a lot of reference points to the information that we're presenting. We're not going to get into the weeds or into the details of every part, but wanted to share, we have these amazing pieces around our literacy instruction, around phonemic awareness, decodables, reading comprehension, and these are research-based and effective programming for our students to really gain the skills they need. Next slide. We have an amazing toolkit. It's something we can really be proud of. And when we have concerns about a student, the first step is really that we ask teachers to do a kid talk. And that's to just say, hey, what's worked? This is the problem I'm having. What do you suggest? And trying a few things out to see if some changes that a classroom teacher can readily make will make the difference. This EST process shows a flow chart of that kid tech process. And if the concerns are resolved, then they would go back to the core. If they're not, we might be moving on and referring for an education support team plan. So it's a great resource. These are linked to look at that toolkit. All right, next slide. Here it is again, and we've added in a piece about our BUHS EST process, which is slightly different when you get to the secondary level because students have a lot more teachers in their day-to-day interactions. And when you get to the high school, you are actually needing to work with departments on looking at data. So having Janet involved as our secondary curriculum coordinator is really an important factor for us. I don't know if Hannah was able to make it online. Hannah Rositsky was going to stop in if she could and talk to that piece, but I know she also has a few things happening this evening. So it's an important piece for us to have a really structured MLSS system that really defines the steps to help struggling learners get their needs met within the mainstream classroom as much as possible, and then having a flow chart that shows the decisions that are made by teams as they need more and more intensive supports or interventions. Okay. We provide information to our families and caregivers that outlines this. You can see they're eye-grabbing and really outline the purpose of our EST plans and the importance of having specific measurable goals and really assessing the progress towards those goals and having family involvement within that EST process. Then if they're still not making the traction we hope, the progress we hope, they may be referred to the West evaluation team for consideration of whether a special education evaluation would be appropriate or not. Next slide. All right. So these are our goals for the EST process for 24-25. And really important for us to be working on our schedule, norms and teaming, our family and staff engagement, our referral processes and outcomes, and our administrative engagement and support. Next slide. All right, and Randy's here to talk a little bit about preschool.
Yeah, so our process is similar, and there are two of us co-coordinating preschool EST services in the district, and we are aligning with as much as we can with the rest of the school age EST system, but then keeping it really developmentally appropriate for early childhood. But, when referrals come in to my office for the early childhood special ed office, they come in as a referral for a screen or observation first, and then sometimes we go to EST with those kids, and sometimes it comes in as an EST referral for families or programs that know about our services. And one of the goals that Carrie Beebe and I have this year for our EST is doing outreach to programs, because we serve, this the system for early childhood I talked about, it's like the delivery model is a mixed delivery model. So we are doing outreach this year to programs to make sure all our partner programs, as well as our public pre-K classrooms, know about EST and the the service we can provide around that. And over the years, I've been doing EST for about 15 years for preschoolers, and over the years, it has morphed from looking at all areas of development to becoming a process for supporting kids with, and teachers who have kids with some behavior challenges and kind of more social emotional needs, but actually we can work around any area of development. So that's part of our outreach this year, is to really help schools know, like, if you have, I had a referral this year for motor concerns for a special ed eval, and we go in, we observe and so forth, and then make a decision about what the next steps are. And I suggested we go to EST, and this is a private program, and the director was like, I didn't know we could go to EST for motor concerns. And I said, yes, you can go for all areas, and you're one of our programs where we'll be, doing some outreach to and talking to. So we're really trying to expand our EST to do that sort of first layer of support before we go to an evaluation. So that's a little bit about how we operate on the EST. And so last year we had 21 EST, kids on EST plans. And this year so far, we two followed over to this year because they were hadn't gone on to kindergarten yet, and there were still some concerns. So those are in the queue for kind of next steps right now. And we had, three came over, but one I think is a highlighted story of like not going to an evaluation when it's not needed, because I don't want to put kids on IEPs when it's not needed. So last year, a teacher presented some concerns around like receptive language and expressive language, and this is, what's going on for this child. And we started an EST for this child, provided some minimal service and support to the classroom, and we just exited him this week because he had made the gains that we were hoping for. He reached his goal. We had written a measurable goal. We knew he made that, hit that target, and so that felt like a real success. It wasn't a kid we went through that process unnecessarily, and was able to move on, and now that's history is there. So should things arise again later, it's there in our really comprehensive EST system for the district.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And so I'll talk a little about Stacy Sawyer. I'll talk a little bit about our coaching program in the district. So just like we want to put supports in place for students, we also have some supports in place for teachers, and helping them develop to be the best support that they can be, instruction for their classroom. So in our coaching program, we meet monthly as coaches, and we have some goals this year. One, to further our own learning about coaching and how to support teachers who then support students, and also extend our practice in using data to inform that instruction, and always focusing on the CIP and how can we advance those literacy, math, sense of belonging, graduation rate goals. So in our coaching program, we have some district level coaches and also building-based coaches. So thinking about those two different types of support, and you can see, I'm not gonna read all those pieces of information there, but sort of focusing on teacher learning, and then also building-based coaches focus on teacher and student learning. And so the building-based coaches really work with teachers around student data, and how can I look at the student data and tweak some things in my instructional practice that are really gonna make a difference for students in the classroom. And then building-based coaches do similar things, but we're sort of working at a larger level across the district, as opposed to focusing it on individual teachers in an individual school. I'm gonna turn it over to Ben.
Hi, I'm Ben Lord. I'm the science coach for the district. And the question, who needs a coach? The short answer is anyone who wants to get better at something. Harvard and Yale started playing American football in 1875. Harvard didn't hire a coach, Yale did. Over the next 3 decades, Harvard won exactly 4 games. Then they hired a coach. So I think that the message is, no matter how well trained people are, there's this point where they just can't get better on their own. And so we as coaches, our job is to help good teachers become great.
And my name is Elisa. I am the building coach in Vernon. And one of the best things about my job is, being a coach, we get to build bridges between principals and teachers, between teachers and teachers, between teachers and students. One of the best things of my job is that I'm in every classroom every day. And so I've got a real pulse on the school, as I'm the educational support team coordinator. So I help, coordinate the meetings for all the kids that come through or are having challenges in one way or another. I help facilitate the data, the progress monitoring for the school, so I can see how kids are moving forward in the curriculum. And I just think the best, and I'm in classrooms co-teaching with teachers, helping them implement the curriculum, doing the best I can with that. So I just think one of the best parts of this program is being that connector in the school and helping to build that community of excellence and high quality work.
I have been working with one particular teacher over the past year now. And I remember, like, I think it was my 4th meeting with this teacher, and he just sat back with this expression on his face, and I could tell, like, something was up. And so I stopped our meeting and I asked him what was going on, and he said, "Nobody has invested support in me as a professional like this until now." There are lots of great supports for our teachers, but there's nothing quite like the advantages that come with coaching. There's a bunch listed up there on the board, but I think that 3 really critical ones are that we as coaches have the ability to be a pair of external eyes to help people see themselves from this like an accurate picture of their own reality. And then we help them see ways that they can be better. It's one thing to believe you can be better. It's another thing to see how. And getting better is about a lot of little small things usually. Sometimes they're hard to see. And that's our job. We see the small things that help teachers do that stuff.
And so when we think about coaching, I'm gonna give an example with Connect, this MLSS system, our multi-layers of support, and students who might be presenting some learning challenges and how that coaching model can really help move the needle for students. There was a student who was identified with some reading challenges and was really struggling, was being assessed at a kindergarten level and only being able to read 3 or 4 words in January accurately on this kindergarten level assessment, which was below grade level for where the student was at the time. And the special educator reached out for some support from a coach who was able to sit with the special educator, tweak some things, do some additional layers of assessment, and really fine tune what interventions were happening for that student. And then the success is that by the end of that year, the student had advanced to being able to read on a 4th grade assessment with much more success and achieving that goal that we would hope. They're not on grade level yet, but the progress that was made in that short amount of time really came from a coaching model where there was a coach who was able to support a special educator in delivering those services and helping to tweak that instruction and making a difference for students.
So with that model that you just raised, what grade is, if the student is now reading at 4th grade level, but it's still below?
There are several grades above still that they need to close that gap and continue, but for many years, they were struggling to get any traction and to make inroads, to gain the skills of reading. And so it was with our coach that the special educator was able to get a stronger curriculum, have lessons modeled for them by the coach, and then to work with that coach to make the small adjustments that added up to all the skills that had been being taught, because it wasn't as though they weren't being taught for the years before. It just wasn't coming together to result in fluent reading of connected text. They could read those CVC words like hat or can, but they weren't getting to the point of reading connected text.
So the move was from kindergarten level to 4th grade over the course of only a few months.
Yep.
So something dramatic happened there where there was some block, I would think, for the student, almost that the student was hearing and incorporating the information and the lessons, but couldn't express it?
Right, it wasn't coming together to be automatic. And so here is the progress monitoring that we were using at the time, and that was guiding their instruction. And you can see they started with a very low rate, and by the end of the year, you can see that trend line going up sharply. That's what we want to see within our progress monitoring results. Let's see, then the next one. Here we go, next slide. This is the beginning of this year, and the student on a 4th grade level was able to read 52 words correct per minute. Now, we'd like to see a lot larger words correct per minute, but when you're coming from reading only CBC words and really struggling at a kindergarten level, and within 6 months to come back to school after the summer work and the typical summer slide and be able to read at a 4th grade level with 52 words correct per minute, we are building solid ground for this student to move forward and have stronger progress moving forward and close that gap. Great question.
So I have another question about this particular case study. So when you talk about the summer slide, which as teachers we always feel very strongly about. We love our summers, but it's a significant catch-up at the beginning of the year. Was there something in place for the student over the course of the summer?
I believe there were some extended school year, extended year services, probably something like 4 to 6 weeks of, again, not the level of intensity. Summer work is just to maintain skills, not to progress in those skills necessarily, but to avoid that deep slide where you won't recover all of those skills within that first 3-4 weeks. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Great question.
And Deborah, I think the question that you asked was really profound in terms of this idea of like what changed to see that huge difference for kids. And I'm thinking about, I don't know this particular student's case study, but I'm thinking back to what you were sharing initially, Ben, of like the Harvard and the Yale story. And I think as this relates to what we're seeing a lot with coaching in our building, which may be formal coaching and it may also be mentorship, or it may be someone on the team taking another teacher under their wing or taking a look at programming. But often what we find when we're having kind of the data meetings that Mark was referring to are happening right now, it's this opportunity to take a look and be like, something is not working for this child or this group of students or the system in our school. It can be on all of those levels. And so what's a small tweak that we could potentially make, ideally with someone who has a lot of experience, who's seen a lot of things in the field, who knows their craft really well, who has the time to do the research and look at the evidence-based programs to say, hey, let's try this. I'll pull the program, I'll model it for you, we'll do it together, I'll watch you do it and give you feedback. And we have seen many instances like this where that is the thing that allows not only the student to take off, but now that teacher owns that knowledge from having gone through that coaching cycle to do that with so many other students that they might encounter as well. So I think that's the potential power of coaching that we're trying to leverage. And sometimes we miss, sometimes it's not always this story, but I think it's those tiny tweaks that sometimes you don't see yourself or don't have that knowledge of or don't have the time as a teacher to do that research and the evidence-based digging to find what's the key for that particular student that can really make a huge difference. And then it also helps us as teachers in school systems like, oh, we can change that trajectory. It builds that belief for our educators and also for the students in themselves. So that's the goal always with coaching.
Yeah, building that belief is just primary, right? To have that growth mindset for ourselves as well as all of our students. So I'm happy to talk about special education and how we have continued to expand our case management model, and that is to bring another case manager to support Putney and Vernon, split between them, and to take care of primarily accurately documenting the plans that students need to access appropriate and meaningful education by gathering all the different parts from the providers, from the classroom teacher, and hold an effective meeting and get those processes done in a way that's very procedurally compliant and very timely as far as keeping us on track so that we're not ever passing important deadlines that are federally and state mandated. So we've met with a lot of success by having them do that piece. It allows our special ed providers, our teachers, to really focus on their instruction. And we've found that to be incredibly successful in recruiting. For one piece, we've had several staff move over from regular ed positions to become special educators with this model. A lot of people are daunted by the amount of paperwork and the legalese and all the additional pieces outside of instruction. And so taking a big chunk of that off of their plate and allowing them to focus on the targeted specific interventions that they're providing for their students is really leading to a greater depth of expertise and really a dedication to that student and their progress. So we're really proud of that. At the same time, we're continuing to face a significant number of special ed referrals every year. And so I've got a chart here that it's a lot of numbers, but going from 2021, around the pandemic, we had a total of 120 evaluations for the year. To last year, where if you add the 12 evaluations where the guardian or caregiver decided not to follow through and consent for the special education evaluation, we would have had 225. So we're getting close to having doubled the number of evaluations we were doing since about the time of the pandemic. And a big chunk of this is that we've had a significant number of move-ins, and we've also had an increase in our parent requested evaluations. With that being said, we have a large number of triennials. So every 3 years we come back and we relook at our students' eligibility and reconsider if they need additional supports or if they're still eligible or if they've actually graduated and will receive supports on either a 504 plan or going back to an education support team plan, an EST plan.
So this, can you just go back to the prior slide?
Yep.
This slide is very different from what we initially received. Because I'm looking at this, so I can move it around myself.
Yes.
And this is not what
Yes.
we received.
Yep, so I was waiting to get another piece of information from our secondary West liaison who's only working part-time. And so it took her an extra day to get me that past our deadline. So
Okay, because 23, 24 and 24, 25 are exponentially
right,
much
so,
larger.
and that's the secondary level numbers
I
here
see.
are added in.
And this does not include our early childhood numbers.
Great point.
Uh-huh.
So, and Brandy will be talking about that in a minute. So we have, in 22-23, we separated the West team into an elementary West group and a secondary West group because we were finding that they have slightly different needs, and taking time to review each other's cases wasn't as productive as being focused on just what they have, which is a lot. And so it's been a very successful shift, and we get a lot of referrals, and as Brandy said previously, not all referral requests are granted. At times, we send that information back or request more information or request intervention to happen before we move forward with an evaluation for a variety of factors. There can be many reasons why we would move forward or would not at any given moment. Child find is an important factor for us, though, and that is that we're obligated to identify students who have disabilities, ages 3 to 21. So we're always considering that and weighing, do we have a suspected disability, something like that, and what evidence do we have of interventions that have happened before or of their performance over the last years that we've had them. Sometimes students who are moving in, that's a confound for us. We're just getting them. They may have been eligible in another state, but it doesn't mean that they're eligible for us at that moment. At that time, what we're going to do is honor their previous IEP to the best of our ability, and then we're going to start gathering data. Then we'll go through and either record review the information that they've brought to us, or we'll complete additional evaluations if needed. Typically, we have 60 days to complete that, which is a very tight timeline, especially when evaluators are in high demand, and them completing the evaluation and actually giving you the report results can be challenging within that 60-day window.
60 calendar days,
Yeah.
not 60 school days, which
Yeah.
can really play a role in.
So that is actually an area where we had one finding and that we're in monitoring for one student where we did the meeting within the 60 days. And in the past that would have sufficed, but they upped the bar to say that you will have completed the form, the eligibility form, and given it to the parent by the 60th day now. So they made it very challenging for us to meet compliance, and we were so close to it. It was just that we distributed the report 2 days late in that one instance.
Can I ask, acronyms? What is WEST?
WEST is the Windham Southeast Educational Evaluation Support Team. Windham Southeast Evaluation Support Team.
Thank you.
Yeah. I struggle with some of the acronyms too. Any other questions so far? Okay. So here's a graph showing actually that we have, for initial evaluations, seen a decrease in the last 2 years, going from 66 who were initially evaluated to only 53 of them being actually eligible. And then in 23-24 having 57 that were referred to us and only 33 that were actually eligible. Those are for our new students where we're suspecting there might be a disability. And that is that process, to rule it in or rule it out. And no matter what we do, of course, gather valuable information. And we'll have a baseline and it'll show a lot of great information about a student because they're very comprehensive. But it's taking a student out of the classroom, and it's a little additional stress. And on top of that, it's a lot of work for our evaluation team and the regular ed teaching staff to put all the information together, gather the data, and then meet the students' needs while they're going through that process. So we don't take it lightly initiating evaluations, but we are under a federal mandate, and it's an important mandate. So we try to find that balance and really be accurate in identifying students who do have disabilities and then determining if they have a need for specially designed instruction. So that's the difference between a student who might be eligible for a 504 plan, where you need accommodations or some supplemental supports within the mainstream, versus a student who might be eligible for an IEP, where they need something that a specific type of instruction or delivery of that instruction that most other students don't need. So this is our special ed initial evaluation flow map that we just went through, and we work hard and are quite efficient in using our WEST liaisons, who really help facilitate the entire evaluation process, make sure we're gathering the appropriate data, and then leading the team through the process, and then documenting our eligibility results in a timely fashion. I'm very proud of these teams. They're incredibly hardworking, and they're super knowledgeable and experienced staff. So they're a wealth of knowledge for me. When I have a question that comes up, there's some of the people, although all of my special educators are pretty amazing, I will say, that I might rely on to get an additional consult on specific student issues. Okay, so this is the process that we go through. The 3 gates, we determine if there's a disability that we can identify, and we list the categories that it might fall under. These are federally identified disability categories. Then we have the special gate of adverse effect, which in the past was finding lowest 15th percentile in 3 areas in 1 basic skill area, but now has become, hey, do you have a basic skill area, including all of the academic areas, and now this new one called functional skills, which is things like your executive functioning, your interpersonal skills, your pre-vocational skills, things that are very important, and that we need to find evidence of an adverse effect, but there's not a prescribed percentile. They like you to find at least two areas if possible, and they can't be transient, but they could be a little, they're impactful, but they're not necessarily to that level of severity that they were in the past. One part about adverse effect is that we need to have had the opportunity to provide core instruction in that area and short-term interventions. So that's quite a change for us. And in the area of functional skills, things like executive functioning, self-regulation, interpersonal skills, have we provided any short-term interventions? So our EST process can be incredibly valuable within that process. And sometimes we'll get to this piece and say, wait a minute, we haven't intervened yet. And so we might take a time and gather some data with an intervention to say, did that make the difference?
But you're still on the 60-day clock.
So in that instance, if we didn't have that, that is where we could use a form for a delay of evaluation that would be legitimate to use for that purpose. And so that's actually quite nice, because we do want the opportunity to say, do we really need that specially designed instruction, or would it suffice to be at those layers 2 and 3? And would that make the difference? Because we don't want to give a plan that's more restrictive or intense than a student needs. Finally, if we demonstrate adverse effect, we go to that final area, and this is an area we're now doubling down even more on, and that is that need for specially designed instruction. With having a more robust core with our IM and EL curriculum, and having robust EST level supports at our layers 2 and 3, we hope that we can meet, let's say 90%, 85–90% of our student needs without needing an IEP. So we're not there yet. I think the last metric I saw was that we're over 18% for data that was 2 years ago, and I know that it varies between all of our schools. And we can have some control over those numbers in that as we increase the mastery of our IM and EL and core curriculum and our MLSS systems, more students' needs will be being met. So our numbers should decrease because we'll have less students needing specialized instruction, because those interventions at layers 2 and 3 could make the difference for that student and springboard them to be thriving and progressing. But we will still have some students who have a disability. And sometimes disabilities can't be intervened out of, they truly are handicapping, and we then work with them about how you work around that and still get all the jobs done and still get access to all the rich opportunities that are available within our systems. So those are pieces that we work on sometimes with students for their entire academic career.
And just so you know, Anna is here now.
Oh.
She wasn't before, she is now.
That's great.
I'll tell you a little bit about the early childhood special education process, which is a little bit different than the elementary process. So there's a lot that's similar, like deadlines and requirements and child find things, like those are all the same for us as well. For us, we don't have a West team, so it's our team of, we have 6 case managers, special educators in our office, and several SLPs right now, making our team have enough SLP services. But so without our team, without the West team, the referrals come into my office, I gather information from the referral source, and somebody does a screen and an observation with that child, and then if they are, if an evaluation is recommended by the professional who has completed those processes, then we will move on to an evaluation and follow those timelines and deadlines, and if not, we might recommend an EST, and sometimes nothing at all. We've already had a number of referrals this year, and several we've been able to say, your child is actually developmentally on target right now, and that's great, and a few where we've said, we see some concerns here, let's try some EST work, and then from there, we'll see whether we need to go on to an evaluation. And that, I find that we have a lot of family involvement, and they're just feel incredibly supported by this process involving EST and surrounding them, even though we might not go to an IEP, and families have been just really responsive to that tier, like to get that layer of support. So let's see. Unlike school age, I call it, IEPs or special education process, we don't have that sort of second gate of adverse effect. So we have to look and see, does a child have a delay or have a disability? And for early childhood, it all falls under the category of developmental delay. And we can answer that question, whether a child has a delay, using a medical diagnosis that is likely to result or may result in a significant delay by the 6th birthday. So we're making some projections using evidence and the medical doctor who made that diagnosis to help us make that decision. Or we can look at test scores to determine if a child has a developmental delay. Oftentimes we might use both, because we know there's a diagnosis and that they meet that criteria, but we want to know more information about the child's skills and the areas of need, and that testing can really enlighten us about where we want to go with an IEP if that's the case. So so that, and then those areas, there are domains that we look at in early childhood. It's broken down into social emotional skills and relationships, acquisition and use of knowledge and skills, and taking action to meet needs. So all the domains, adaptive skills, motor skills, cognitive skills, communication, and social emotional all fall into the IEP in one of those 3 categories. So if the child then, if we say yes, they meet that criteria 1, then we ask that question. Do they need specialized instruction? And we talk a lot about need versus benefit. A lot of kids can benefit from things, it's not gonna hurt somebody to have some added, teacher support, say, but we have to know, is it a need? And we're working really hard to help general education teachers meet those needs, and then keeping the IEP for the areas that are actual need for specialized instruction. So there's a lot of teaming going on in this process. Here are some numbers. I have to look at my own computer because I can't quite see it all up there, but our referrals come in from parents, they come from teachers, they come from pediatricians, and sometimes DCF. And then we have a whole nother category of referrals, which are our children transitioning from early intervention, CIS transitions you see up there. CIS stands for Children's Integrated Services. It's how our early intervention for birth to 3 is service in our state. So we get referrals in multiple ways. So you can see on this chart we had, I have to look at my own, I can't even see that on my own computer. In 22, 23, you can see that we had quite a few referrals, and then the number of kids that were eligible is 17, and then you can see the difference in 23, 24, and then 24, 25. So far, that actually number is now 17 referrals so far this year. I want to just make a note. Nearly every single child on our caseload right now receives support for communication, receives support and services from a speech and language pathologist. And out of our, 17 referrals, only 3 did not have a concern around speech and language or communication. A lot of articulation, some language. So it's a real high need right now. And we meet with our early intervention team a couple of times a year to hear about the kids coming up, and so that we're prepared when they turn 3. And we just did that last week, and almost every child is getting some support around communication. So it's a huge need right now. These are numbers that we have no control over. They're coming in. You can see we have project 27 students transitioning into our program. So those are 27 added referrals. So we always start our school year with a lower number of students and end the year higher. So last year we ended with 76 students on IEPs, and we began the year with 45. So some kids moved out. We had a few kids exited, graduated from an IEP, and then a number of kids that went on to kindergarten. So we start lower, but then by the end of the year, we are generally really high, and caseloads really increase.
Well, obviously there's a growing trend with young children, very young children, needing help with articulation and speech patterns. And I'm wondering why.
We're wondering why.
Why as well, yeah, okay.
I mean,
I know we're not a reading society anymore. And I know that perhaps caregivers are very, very busy, struggling financially, which limits how much time you can devote one-on-one to a child.
I think wearing masks and hiding mouths from, really impacted children's ability to learn to articulate sounds. Our speech pathologist during COVID had, clear masks and was had this whole routine of the shaving cream on the mask so it wouldn't fog up. I mean, it's pretty serious. So I think that's a player right now. I personally think screens, are a huge problem in our culture, people are not talking to each other enough, you
Yeah.
know, and people are busy, all of these pieces, and so I think the kind of back and forth, the like, you know, serve and return, these things are, you know, just not as, maybe as prevalent as they have been in the past. So, you know, and people are busy and under a lot of stress, so I get that. But we are really thinking a lot about that too, and thinking about how we can meet that need classroom-wide with some kind of push in and supporting our kids, you know, whole groups of kids around language and articulation. And so we're working on that and focusing, but it's a real need, and I think that's important for the board to know. We're seeing such a high need in that area.
We have a lot to be proud of with our ECSE team. They are a powerhouse.
They're really amazing. I have a really incredible, dedicated team to the work, and I want to just add a little, like, we are not doing that same case manager special ed model, but we are doing that a little bit with one person who wants to focus more on her students, and another person who really likes the paperwork and likes to like dot her I's and cross her T's and kind of enjoys that process. So she's taking on some more paperwork and still maintaining a caseload. She didn't want to leave, you know, completely stop working with children. And so we're trying to use the skill set of our team and grow each other in that way.
And I just also put a plug in that Brandy has been instrumental with Carrie Beebe and our administrative team in, you know, developing the BEC, our Brattleboro Early Childhood Center, and our firm belief in early intervention and having high quality pre-K that will help us have kids that are more regulated and ready to learn as they come into kindergarten.
Can I say something from the Zoom land? I've been fascinated by this whole conversation. I've just been listening intently, and I'm really impressed with the personalized student learning and the just cohesion of the educators present here today, using a multi-layered collaboration in such a highly organized manner. So I was really impressed with the organization that you seem to have developed in order to achieve your work. And we had a meeting with Frank on Monday in the WSESD Finance, and he gave us a sheet that says guiding principles and background data for the FY26 budget planning. And the 4 goals that are highlighted on that page are, every one of them you've touched on. So, you know, it just sort of, maybe it's like a cohesion of budget development and specific student need. And so I think it's really pretty heartening. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean. It is our goal, and I think that is the intent of MLSS. And so I'm so encouraged working within this district and with my leadership team under Mark's leadership to continue to drive our progress in this area. It will be meaningful. We will see results and outcomes, and if we're not seeing them, we're going to be making those tweaks in a coordinated manner.
It's really exciting, you know, like you know, when we get these families at the early childhood level to say, you know, I'm not, like I had to have some conversations this week, I'm not seeing a need to evaluate right now, but let's do this EST process and your child's not going to get lost, right? We're going to start here, and if we need to, we'll go there, but we're not going to put the child through that process if we don't need to. And so I think that we're talking and using these terms with our youngest learners and their families, so that families understand this process and how comprehensive it is. And it feels really good to me as a professional to be able to say, this plan exists, is in a place, and if your child needs it, we're coming back to it. It's like, and how robust our system for EST is, for MLSS is, it just, I feel really good about it. It's really strong, and you know, I feel satisfied by that as a professional, that we are meeting kids' needs and we're making the changes when we need to in order to do better. You know, I'm proud of that work.
I think up until tonight, I always thought MLSS was completely different than special ed. I thought they were totally siloed and you were one or the other. And you guys have really, I'm hoping this was your intent, you really flow back and forth between, you take your benchmarking data, you figure out what the need is, you do the MLSS, okay, maybe you wanna do the IEP, maybe you wanna go back here. It's, thank you. I've got a much better understanding, and I thought I understood it before, but I clearly didn't.
And we continue.
Yes, I'll be limited.
Is that Mark?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Well, just a few other pieces, just the review of that we have expanded our case manager model for Putney and Vernon, as well as adding to BUHS. Our occupational therapy assistants, our CODAs, have gone in and supported all kindergarten classrooms as a layer 1 intervention at the beginning of the year. Whitney, along with Becky Peloso, have developed a special education literacy leadership group. There'd be 7 of them moving to go to the Plain Talk Conference in February using some 1% funding. We're hoping to have catalysts of people that have gotten excited and trained with new approaches and resources to even better meet our students' literacy needs. It's a big area, and there's a lot of research and program development happening, and so it's great to have educators going to see what the latest innovations are and bring back some training and excitement for all of our staff. All right, having our Google Sheets for out of grade level progress monitoring, organized by school and grade level. An amazing Ready, Set, K camp that happened at Green Street this year, a few weeks before school, with Kaylee Richardson, one of our veteran special educators, Matt Boggio, an intern behavior analyst, and then Brenda Wood, Amy Whaley, and Stephanie Kendall, paraeducators who supported a group of kindergartners who may have never been in a preschool before, or who have challenges that might make entering kindergarten a little bit more stressful. And so they were able to develop plans that were ready to go for each of the students as they entered their kindergarten classroom.
And if I might interject, Carrie Beebe and I were both involved in recruitment of students, since we have a lot of familiarity with the preschool world and who those rising K kids are who might benefit from that. And families felt like they were so overjoyed by the opportunity. They were so excited for the opportunity for their child to come and get some, a head start on getting into kindergarten. So in that regard, I think it also was just a big success for families to feel at peace because they worry about their kids. So it was amazing.
I got the opportunity to go and visit one day, and it was really special. They were just doing great work, and the kids were really happy and quite successful. We also have, with our Act 173, increased our flexibility in delivering interventions, and so we don't have to be quite as siloed. Oh, this is a special ed group. You kids that are on an EST or a 504 plan who really would benefit from these services, oh, you can only have so many of you in this group. We no longer have to worry about the percentages within that group. It's really who is the best teacher to provide that intervention for those students. And that might flexibly change every 6-8 weeks or depending on the cycle as students demonstrate good progress or demonstrate, oh, we need something a little different, and their data is not showing that progress that we're hoping for. I have to say, getting a chance to go to a Putney data meeting this morning it was so encouraging. Really thoughtful conversations, really based in data and pulling data from a lot of sources, and then having a thoughtful conversation about, I know the data says this, but this is my experience with this student, and how valuable that was. It was really impressive. A lot of energy and a lot of focus in that meeting, and really knowing their students inside and out. It's just, I encourage everybody to get a chance to take a look. As well, our coordinators are having monthly meetings with their special educators and principals at each school site to really work on that collaboration around instructional resources.
Can you, before you leave that slide, the fourth bullet down,
Yep.
where it says Google Sheets for out of grade level progress monitoring.
Right. So when we benchmark a student, we benchmark them at their grade level. How are you doing if you're a fourth grader on the fourth grade curriculum and standards? But when they're demonstrating significant gaps in their skills, then progress monitoring can't be at the 4th grade level. It needs to be at the level where they're actually instructionally at to have sensitivity.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions? Well, we were really pleased to be asked to do this presentation. I will say it was a little stressful up front. Well, what are we going to do? How's this going to work? And it was truly the collaboration of the team that brought it together, and it felt really rich. So.
We very much appreciate it. And I would ask that someone forward me this updated slideshow. I'll send it to the rest of the board.
Thank you very much.
And I think there was a problem with the sharing, so will you attach that to the minutes then?
Yes.
Yeah,
Great.
So,
thanks.
yeah, great.
Got it.
Thank you so much.
It was comprehensive, it's interlinked, with real sensitivity to the changes that a child goes through. At least that's my perception of this. So thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you again. Okay. Now, this is the point at which we would normally have new business, which we updated at the beginning of the meeting. And I have a statement that I need to read. I was requested to inform the public regarding the superintendent's new contract. I was under the impression that a press release was going to be made at the time, but I guess it wasn't. At any rate, on February 16th, 2024, I negotiated and signed a new 3-year contract with our superintendent, Mark Spino, at the direction of the W.S.A. board. The board voted unanimously to authorize me to do this at a regularly scheduled and duly warned meeting on February 14th, 2024. The contract began on July 1st, 2024, and expires on June 31st, 2027, June 30th, sorry. It contains a provision for an annual raise for each of those 3 years. This is a usual and customary contract in the state of Vermont, and annual raises are a standard component of educational contracts which protects student and school personnel from the prevailing winds of politics. I am stating for the record that I did what I was asked to do in this instance. Any intimation that I have done something untoward or unethical is untrue, unwarranted, unfair, and frankly defamatory. I have served the students of our district for going on 11 years with integrity and an unwavering moral lens that put their needs first, even ahead of my own family's. I intend to continue serving them and look forward to continuing to collaborate with our staff to create the best educational experience possible for the students that represent our future. Thank you. And Kevin just got here. Okay. I hope that will inform the public regarding the new 3-year contract, which was signed back in February. On to new business. Is there anything anyone would like to bring up for discussion at our next meeting?
Next meeting is November.
Our next meeting is November.
Is that beginning of budget?
Probably. I'm going to September, stop that. Our next meeting is November 13th.
Feel like it's start of budget.
Yeah. But, you know, that'll be on the agenda anyway.
And I don't have my Mark calendar.
I have my Mark calendar. This was, you know, things that aren't on the Mark calendar.
Right, yeah.
Things that we would like to do, things that we think are important for further discussion that we cannot have a discussion about because we haven't made a warning. Well, we can discuss anything, but we can't do anything about it. Okay.
Can't think of.
Yeah. You think
We probably will be wrapping up Mark's evaluation.
Probably. Okay, if there is,
That evaluation is due this Friday
Yes.
at noon.
yes.
Yes.
Reminder
Okay.
to everyone who's on that list, the evaluation is due this Friday.
And I'm wondering, because we had an extension last year,
Yes.
so I'm wondering there's no one from the V.S.A. here at this point, but I'm wondering what the rate of return is at this point.
Hold on a second, I can find that, because she asked me if I wanted her to send out a nudge email, which she did.
I was gonna say, I responded to
Yes.
the nudge.
4 was as of October 7th, 4 of 14 board members.
4 of 14?
Mm-hmm.
Only 4 of 14? Well, okay,
That was,
yeah,
as of the 7th,
I took the nudge.
and 18 of 28 administrators.
Okay.
18 of 28.
Yes.
Okay.
And
As
then-
of 2 days ago.
Yeah, and where they were still expecting Mark's self-evaluation. So,
And do we know this year if you can go into it and write comments, come out of it and go back in?
Oh, that I don't know.
Because we couldn't last year, or we couldn't.
I just
You
sat
just
down and
did the whole thing.
did the
Got it.
whole thing. It's long.
No, it is.
It's
Yes, that's why I'm
long, so,
wondering whether
yeah.
we can do it in stages. Okay. Mhm. All right.
okay, if there is nothing further, we're going to enter an executive session. Do I hear a motion to enter executive session under 1 V.S.A. 313A3, the appointment or employment or evaluation of a public officer or employee?
So moved.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Thank you. Peter, no action is anticipated after this executive session. And I don't know if anyone unlocked the door for us.
Oh,
On the agenda,
I have a number. It's not.
let's find out.
Have a good night, everybody.
Okay, good night.
Thank you, Mark.